No, we got back late last night. Is there a way to make this so it's... I want to kill these slides. Will you just play with those buttons?
Sure.
It'll work. So I teach marriage prep. That's from, well, so my passion about this started when I was in high school, and I couldn't get a girl to like me. I was just their friend. And so I was the guy that had all these great, cute friends that were girls that none of them wanted to be my girlfriend, which in hindsight was probably a good thing. I don't think I was mature enough to have a real good relationship then.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's great. So I came to BYU-I-Do about almost 4 years ago and started to see some habits and some things with the culture that were not helpful. I imagine you guys have some insights on that, and I'll ask for those in a second. My first question is this, though. What does the dating culture have to do with this? I'm trying to help me understand how this conversation has anything to do with advocacy. Yeah.
It establishes habits that will continue on when you have your own family.
Okay, so just the habit development. We believe in the doctrine of becoming, and who we become through this dating process will be exactly who we are when we start marriage and perhaps further into it. Okay? Any other reasons? Yeah.
Well, marriage and family can't happen without dating.
Marriage and family can't happen without dating. We're going to talk about some of the consequences, and they're long-term like that with some of the dating culture problems. Today we're going to discuss the problems, not all of them, but some of them, the consequences to those problems, and then some solutions. We're going to specifically talk about two that we hope will help. So, number, let me just ask you. And I played with the... Can't do that on PowerPoint. What do you consider to be the biggest problems with the dating culture on campus? Like, there's problems in the world in general, as in they don't date. And you even have some unique problems down in Provo. But as you just think about your experience here as a BYU-I student and just observing roommates or friends or yourself, what are the biggest problems with the dating situation here? Yeah?
What I think is there's too many people, so people can't like settle down and actually pick someone to date.
Okay, yeah, we're going to talk about that. FOMO. You guys FOMO? Here in this town, there's always somebody better out there for you for sure. So, too many choices. Too many choices, which we live in Kansas and we have like 50 active people in our branch, and they're like, oh, please give us more choices. Right? Okay, so too many choices. Yeah?
I know for me personally, just when I was single, just being an RN, people just thought I wanted to marry him like the next day or something.
Well, there's a couple of things here. Number one, there is at least perceived pressure to marry it. The prophets are not teaching us to rush into marriage. The culture is. The culture is saying, let's get married quickly. And then you attach other meanings, like, okay, return missionaries, therefore they're here to get married. Return missionaries asking me on a date, that must mean he wants to marry me. Yeah?
So I was married before I started attending BYU, but I just learned that it meant the I in BYU, I meant BYU-I-Do. So that's false.
Okay, so there's expectations, but it happens fast, or it doesn't happen at all. We're not very good at actually having thoughtful and intentional dating practices in which we are wise and prudent, or as Elder Oaks would say, thoughtful and thorough. We either do that for an extended period of time that's unnecessary, or we forget the whole thoughtful part and just go right into it. Okay? Good. There are many more. We're going to hit on some of these. As I thought about how to organize my ideas about the problems with the dating culture, I decided I'd do it within the context of the RAM. Oh, here's a nice little cartoon right now. So are you guys dating? Dating? No. We're kind of, sort of, maybe, might be hanging out sometime. Okay, we'll come back to that. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the RAM, or the relationship attachment model. Okay. Well, keep your hands up. For those of you who are not, just look around. At some point in the near future, find somebody and have them just give the lowdown. I'm not going to... You put your hands down. I'm not going to lay this out very much. I'll be very brief, because that's not the point of our conversation today. So this is the RAM, the relationship attachment model. The basic premise is this. You should know somebody, this is in dating, you should know somebody more than you trust them. You should trust them more than you actually rely upon them. You should be able to rely upon them more than you commit to them. And you should be more committed than your level of touch. What we typically see, I should maybe brought the one we committed to, is touch is up here. Commitment's either up here or down here. It's all over the place. But almost consistently, no here on campus is down here. Depending on the person, trust is either super high or super low. And I'll talk about that. John Van Epp, who came up with this, calls this the safe zone. So when you date according to the safe zone, you are intentionally getting to know them before you go to some of these other dimensions of connection. The reason why. The higher you are up on these, the stronger feelings of attachment you're going to have. And the stronger feeling of attachment, if your mind's not engaged, then you're inclined to make a less informed or even a foolish decision with who you date or how you date, who you marry or when you marry. And this is marriage is a really big decision, and we need to be careful. But too many of us just kind of go, just love and let love and live and do all that stuff. Okay, that's the basics of the RAM. So what I did is I decided to go through and specify specific problems we have with each dimension of the RAM. Okay, that's how I've kind of organized it. So number one, there's a nice little cartoon. Wait, hang on, let's think about this. This is your brain if you don't know what that is. This is your brain, this is your heart. Shut up, let's do this. Yeah. Okay? What's interesting is Van Epp, who's not a member of the church, hits really strongly on the importance of engaging your mind and your heart in the decision-making process in relationships. We default by making decisions with our heart. If we feel it, we do it. If we don't feel it, we don't do it. As if our feelings are the one true source of all information. But the Lord tells us, behold, I will tell you in your mind and in your heart. I think the Lord expects us to use both of these. The mind and the heart. Hey, Sarah, we saved you a seat right here.
Sure, I'm going to be sewing, so should I go in the back?
Oh, yeah, that works too. Okay? So we need to engage our mind and the heart. The main problem with no is that we don't do that. Our minds are disengaged from the decision-making process. Now, that doesn't seem like it makes sense. But if your mind's disengaged, then you have to ask, well, what is making your decisions for you? So I'm going to ask you, if your mind is disengaged, what is making your relationship decisions for you? What? Hormones, okay? Hormones is definitely one, and we'll talk about some of those specifically. What else? Feelings. Circumstances. I mean, just for example, I asked this question in my last marriage prep class. I think it was your class. 3 dates track system. Oh yeah. Okay, so the track system. One of your first conversations you have when you go on a first date with somebody is you casually figure out which track they're on because you have to decide whether or not it's worth doing anything. So what happens is the circumstances. Oh, you know what? It's near the end of the semester. They're not on track next semester. I'm out. Circumstances made decision. Well, you certainly could use your brain and engage your heart and still perhaps get to know them in a way without either committing to them too fast or just totally cutting off the relationship. You filter out a big part of your dating pool when you let circumstances dictate what's happening. Okay? All right. Oh, the second part that's an issue with the no. As soon as people know that they know, they stop thinking about it. They stop getting to know each other. They think that because they feel they've received a confirmation from heaven, that gives them the right to stop getting to know their partner. Do you know what that equals? That equals a lot of unrealistic expectations in marriage, which is going to be very, very, very destructive. Honestly, the most important time to really dig deep to get to know somebody is probably when you're dating exclusively and you're engaged. Getting to know somebody when you're dating non-exclusively is different than getting to know them when you're dating exclusively, and then again different from when you're engaged. The relationship is in a different context. You learn different things. The process is the way the process should work. The process should work is you first figure out if you want to be with them. And we'll talk about ruling people out too soon in just a second. But the Lord wants you to make your own decision. So you find out, do you want to be with them? Don't go to the Lord with somebody that you don't want to be with and say, hey, should I marry this person? If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. So order of operation number 1 in getting to know is, do I like this person? Am I willing over time to choose to love them? And then after that, you come to know the will of the Lord in that. Okay, all right. Next one, so chemistry, so related to know. And I will try to minimize my soapbox on chemistry, but it's a major issue. So it started in Kansas for me. Actually started before that with my own marriage. So I'll give you this backdrop. So I had this idea with how it was going to happen for me, how everything was going to go down, like how I was going to get married, right? What was going to happen, I was going to find a girl that I found very attractive, which is very important, and then I was going to chase her, she was going to run, I would chase, and eventually she would turn around and then allow herself to be caught. I would get down on one knee and ask, and we would get married, okay? That idea is driven by the sense that there's a lot of chemistry. I'm drawn to her through chemistry, so I keep chasing her. That's not what happened for me in my relationship with my wife when we were dating. It started with, I found her attractive, I thought she was cute, I liked being around her, but I lacked that chemistry. And so, do you know what I did for like 6 months? I said, I'm just not interested. Why? I didn't feel it. What do you mean you didn't feel it? I don't know, I just didn't feel it. Like because I didn't feel it, I shouldn't do anything with it. Well, then all of a sudden I had a paradigm shift, and I said, wait a second, what am I rationally, what am I looking for? What do I really want in a spouse? And as I began to reframe what I was looking for, and then thought about my wife, I was, wait a second. In my mind, this is exactly what I want. I just don't feel it. So I'll give it a whirl. I'll try it out. Give it a whirl, started dating her, even though I didn't have chemistry at first. And guess what? Chemistry happened. Had I never started dating her without chemistry, I might still be single. Hopefully not. But I may very well still may be single because Satan can use feelings to deceive us. That's why the Lord says, I will tell you in your mind and your heart. He wants us to engage both of these. So, a couple things on this. If I just... Oh, did you see the fireworks? Let me ask you a couple questions. What is chemistry? What is it?
I feel like chemistry is just a term that we've kind of made up for being attracted to someone, and you just assume that that's like it's when you feel attracted towards someone else, and we've just called it chemistry and pretended that's love.
Okay, good. So this is really important. Because I think that there is a difference between attraction and chemistry. For example, you can recognize you're attracted to somebody, but you just don't feel it. But what you said that we feel this attraction, we feel drawn to them somehow. And it's a word that we've kind of used to just slap on there. Okay? What's actually happening, there's definitely some brain chemicals that are just firing. They're just rolling. Yeah?
When you said, what is chemistry, my idea is like you take two different things and you combine them to create something new. And so when applying to dating and there's chemistry, it's like, oh, you take this aspect from this person and this aspect from yourself, and you're like, oh, we can create something new. And that is chemistry. That's why I feel drawn to date this person.
Drawn to them, excitement,
connection, you just vibe.
Connection, the vibes, just the...
You're jiving, you have the same wavelength.
You just can't stop thinking about her.
Right.
Chemistry.
Say all the same things.
See all the same things.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Like with chemistry, it's almost like you
Hold on just a second. So for those of you who still don't know what it is, Frozen, Love is an Open Door equals chemistry.
sandwiches.
Okay? All right, hold on. We're going to get this comment right here. Yeah.
I feel like it's like, I think we kind of confuse it with like clicking with someone, but we confuse that with emotional connection somehow when we really don't know them. And we feel this emotional connection just because we get along with them well. And it causes a lot of problems.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. This is, let me go back. Can. Okay. Chemistry. Oh, no. Sorry, I don't usually do this on my phone. Okay, so chemistry, and some of the stuff I'm going to share with you comes from the Jerk book, which is where Bandit talks about the RAND. He also talks about chemistry. Chemistry sees what it wants to see. If you're feeling chemistry, it gives you the feeling that you know somebody, even when you don't. It gives you the feeling that you can trust them, even when you shouldn't, because you don't know them. It gives you the feeling that they'll be there for you. It gives you the feeling that, should we get married? I mean, these marital conversations that happen way too fast, that's inspired by chemistry. Chemistry is not inherently bad, but chemistry also prompts premarital sex, number one. A good rational thinking Latter-day Saint would never have premarital sex unless chemistry was in the driving seat. A good rational thinking Latter-day Saint would not do several things physically unless chemistry was making the decisions. So, why would you trust something that you know nothing about, really, to make your relationship decisions for you? Is chemistry a good judge of character? I mean, how many times have you perhaps felt chemistry for somebody who you knew you probably... I've never married them, but man, I just feel that. So chemistry is not a good judge of character. So the point here with no is that there's chemistry there. It gives us this sense that we know them, and we can move forward in a relationship with them, when in reality we just got some hormones or the brain's clicking on all cylinders here. All right. I apologize. I normally use PowerPoint. But I was on a plane yesterday when I did this, and my laptop wasn't working. So I had to create it on my iPad. All right. Here's my question for you. Do you personally make relationship decisions more with your mind and your heart, or with chemistry? And if it's more with chemistry, you need to take a couple steps back. Secondly, patterns of revelation and chemistry. Can we all agree that revelation sometimes, it's hard to determine whether it's us or whether it's the Lord? I think it's a lifelong quest for us to determine that idea. The reality is chemistry can make it more difficult to interpret the Lord's answers for us. And he typically, what he does, the Lord gives us an answer here. He gives us answers line upon line, here a little and there a little. But chemistry gives us the sensation of feeling something all at once. So chemistry can just compromise our judgment. Okay. We'll go quickly through trust and rely. We're too trusting or too untrusting. The reason why is we fill in the blanks. You meet somebody who's a returned missionary, and we automatically assume what?
They're a good person.
They're a good person. He serves in the Yellowstone presidency, too. Not how cool is he? Ace, right? She's a returned missionary. She served in the Relief Society. We make all these assumptions because we have a shared language that, and just to highlight this point, and I don't want to be too crass with this, but this man was crass. This was before my mission. I didn't know much about missionary work at that point, and this is in Utah County. I was doing I was selling vacuums. Worst job ever, right? But this guy, who was really, I'm sure just maybe came from a broken home, but the guy had a very telestial way about him. So he had lots of tattoos, and that doesn't make him telestial, but what he said is this. He said, I can get whatever I want from any of those BYU girls. All I need to do is wear a long-sleeve shirt and tell them I served a mission in such and such country. I can get whatever I want from them. And he was referring to physically. He can get whatever he wanted. It's just disgusting. But because we hear the lingo, we hear the language, we make assumptions, we fill in the blanks, and so we actually our trust is up here, when really it should be down here. Not because they're not trustworthy, it's just we just don't know them yet. Okay, does that make sense? All right. The other thing with rely, we share too much too soon. Married couples have a hard time having meaningful conversations. Dating couples just spew stuff out, and the question often comes up, well, at what point should you share the fact that you've been addicted to porn or had a porn addiction in the past? Personally, it's not on the first date. I know some bishops might say, in the first date you need to have this conversation. I don't think that's fair. That's private information that you wouldn't go and post that on Facebook. Therefore, I think you wouldn't reveal some of that information until you got to know them a little bit. Perhaps before you start dating exclusively or around that time, but you have to monitor the information you choose to share. If you leave the first date and you're like, man, I shared my whole life story, all of this stuff, and they shared their whole life story, it's going to give you a sense that you're totally connected, that you totally know each other, but it's still only been one date. Does Does this make sense? Because, like, yeah, this is stupid. We know this is the problem. Okay. Well, this other thing I was thinking about. We isolate ourselves too quickly in a relationship. What do you think that means? Yeah.
So it's like immediately focusing on one person instead of giving yourself the ability to, I mean, compare is not the right word really, but like honestly we do want to be able to gauge how well we know people based on how well we know other people.
Okay, good. And even, so you're dating exclusively. I mean, how often have you guys known somebody who just, they are always with each other, and their friends are totally gone? And some of that's natural, but too soon. We've known them for 2 weeks, and now we're spending every minute with them. Social isolation. It's just she and I, that's it. That's going to give you a sense that you know each other more than you do, and it's going to give you a sense that you're more connected than you really are. That's going to influence your decision-making processes. Anywho, questions so far on know, trust, or rely? Because the biggest issue is touch is a big deal, but commitment's a really, really, really big deal. Okay. So Elder Oaks gave a talk in 2005, and it's since been known as like the hanging out talk. Raise your hand if you've heard of that. Okay. So he gave this talk, and he warned us of the dangers of making a date, exaggerating the meaning of a date. When I say that, what do you think that means? What does it mean to exaggerate the meaning of a date? Somebody on this side of the room, yeah.
So when you ask someone that, it's like subconsciously saying, like, I really like you and I'm hoping for a romantic relationship, when it's just really, the purpose is to get to know the other person.
Okay, so can we all be honest here? Let's start revealing some of our thoughts. So you're planning for a first date. What are some of the thoughts that are going through your head?
Oh, I need to impress her.
And we're glad, Chad, that you decided to impress her, because that's good. Okay? So impressing her is good, yeah.
I think of like, well, what attributes does this person have? What habit could I absolutely not stand? I think of like what I want and like, does this match up? I'm like, no, or yes. Or.
So is it fair that we put this? It's like we put like this filtering system on. And honestly, at the very beginning, the filtering system should be fairly loose. You want to know why? Because you don't know them very well. Okay? Just because Chad chews with his mouth open on date 1 doesn't mean he'll chew with his mouth open on date 2. Okay?
I have been on a lot of dates that I didn't want to be on, and so I like normally like before the date I'm like, oh, like I have to go on Friday, blah blah blah.
I'm gonna get a free meal, lame.
But I try and like mentally prepare myself to be myself and to like be
Good.
okay with like whatever happens. Like not be different because I'm not interested.
Yeah. And girls, how do you feel when a guy spends a lot of money on a first date?
Really
We're going to ask a question just for reiteration. Girls, how do you feel when a guy spends a lot of time and energy or money on a first date? So guys, why do not you personally, but why do guys do that? Why do guys go all in for a first date? Or why do they feel tempted to do that? To impress. There's so many other good-looking guys here who are all just going presidents in some other place, and I've got to woo her. So what happens, though, we shoot ourselves in the foot, because people will want to go on a second date with you, in part if they find you attractive, but if they feel comfortable around you. Did you hear what the girls just said in one voice? They feel uncomfortable when a guy spends, it's either too much time, too much energy, or too much money on a first date. Because, girls, what are you thinking if he does that? He wants to marry me. He's a return missionary. Is he expecting something in return? And is he going to expect some sort of physical touch? What is he thinking? All of that increases her anxiety, which decreases her feelings of comfort. She will begin to associate you with being uncomfortable. If you want a second date, that's not what you do. So initially, we have short, simple dates where we don't spend either any money or very little. That's it. And you will win her over more that way than trying to go all out, because she's going to be like on edge the whole time. You don't just. It's sad though. They put all this time and energy, and the girl feels uncomfortable the whole time. You can save all those dates you have planned that are very elaborate. You can do a couple of those when you're dating exclusively or engaged, or heck, you can just save them for when you're married and do those. Okay? We'll come back to this in a second. Number 2, dating versus hanging out. We don't need to go into this. Hanging out comes naturally. You do not have to engage your mind to hang out. I don't think it's bad to hang out on occasion with people to get to know them. The reality is we have a hanging out way of being where we just kind of chill. Our mind disengages. A date invites us to engage our mind. There are some things you can learn about a partner on a date that you just simply won't through hanging out. Number 2, if you have a pattern of going back to the habits, if you have a pattern of hanging out before marriage, you will have a pattern of hanging out after marriage. And so if you want your husband, sisters, to rarely take you out and just hang out with you after marriage, then don't worry about it beforehand. However, most women want their husband to still court them. If he's not doing it before he gets married, he's not going to do it after. All right, maybe FOMO. We've mentioned this, fear of missing out. I know you guys have had this thought, and I'm gonna verbalize it so you can hear how repulsive it sounds. Is this the best one I can get? Is there somebody better for me? Can I get a cute girl and a return missionary in one package? Can I get this? Those thoughts come to our mind. I think that they're normal, but not helpful. A lot of things that are normal aren't helpful. When you're trying to establish a relationship, like if you're dating exclusively and you really want to give this person a chance, those type of thoughts they'll denigrate the quality of the commitment. You just won't be your best self. I don't know. You have to fight them like pornographic thoughts. Now, when you're dating, and if there's a place for that. For example, if somebody's like, okay, this guy doesn't keep his covenants, he doesn't go to church. He told me he's still currently addicted to porn. Is there someone else out there for me? Yeah, I would say maybe there's probably someone else out there for you. But if you've got a decent human being, and you're still just obsessing over little particular details that you might miss out on, it's just not wise. Damaging DTRs too soon. You guys know what DTR is?
Determine the relationship.
Yeah, determine the relationship, define the relationship. These are not just a Mormon thing. They just do this everywhere. When should you have your first DTR? No. When do you typically have your first DTR?
Too soon.
Too soon is defined, so like when?
Date 3.
So I had a really good time with you last night. I know it was our first date, but do you think there's potential for us to do something? Okay. There are different types of DTRs. You'll have a DTR at some point when you become exclusive, or at least you probably should, and you need to have a DTR when you begin to talk about marriage. Those things should not happen within your first several dates. You should be free to just go, relax, get to know somebody, have fun, before you even begin to just obsess over this stuff. And I'll come back to that in just a little bit. Oh, the track system. Again, I mentioned this earlier. We either avoid it, so if we meet somebody, we either just don't date at all near the end of the semester, because what's the point, right? Or we meet somebody halfway through a semester, and then we find out that they're not going to be on track, and sometimes we I'm going to lose out, because there's going to be another cute girl who comes along who's going to swipe him up. Let's commit. So we either move too fast or we just cut it off. We take these two extremes if we find out that if we're not both on track next semester. Certainly we can engage our mind and figure out how to date in this context. It's called technology. It's called getting. It's also called saying, hey, you're really cool. I don't know you well enough to be with you, but you're really cool. I would like to keep contact. It should be okay just to do that. And you keep contact, and you win her over later. Ambiguous levels of commitment we'll come back to. Okay, touch. How many are we done here?
3.
3, all right. You like how I put the lips up there for you? Okay, obviously too much, too soon. Raise your hand if you've ever had any trepidation about finding a good person to marry. You're kind of nervous that you won't find a good person to marry. Raise your hand high. You don't raise your hand if you don't feel that way. But I think most normal human beings have some concern, because this is a big deal. You want to make an eternal commitment with somebody that's kind of shoddy, right? So question. Why would we do something that compromises our ability to actually make a good decision? Don't you realize that when you engage in physical touch too soon, that your mind naturally disengages? Like in marriage, in a sexual relationship, your mind naturally disengages. So when you engage in physical touch with somebody else, your mind naturally disengages. So then what's making your decisions about who to marry? So when you're having this marriage conversation in week number 2 of somebody, because you kiss well together and because you click, it is not your mind that's making that decision. And if your mind's not making the decision, at least informing the process, you're being duped. And I wouldn't recommend it. Okay? Number 2, we have different meanings of touch. So when my friend Rich here, I forget your name. Abina? So let's say Rich, to Rich, holding a hand is like nothing. He holds hands with every girl he goes on dates with. But for Abina, it's like, no, we only hold hands when we're super serious. It muddies the meaning, and it makes things confusing. If a guy is holding her hand, but to her that means a big deal, but to him it's not, just touch has different meaning. Unfortunately, kissing has been thrown into this category where it doesn't mean much to some people, but it means a lot to another. Nick Mose, you guys know about these? Not healthy? Can we agree that these are not healthy? So we surveyed BYU-I students. I should have brought this data. It's been maybe 2 years ago. And we asked them, how common are Nick Mose on campus? Like how often? Here. Here. And so we asked the students, we had like 300 responses, random sample of BYU-I students, and the options were very common, common, uncommon, very uncommon. Overwhelmingly, it was very common and common. A few said very uncommon. 0 people said very uncommon. Does that make sense? I said that twice. Yeah. So some people said uncommon. Nobody said very uncommon. Which is fascinating. Which is terribly sad if it's true. So there's this perception that people are just like making out with people. It's just like this make out fest, and then that's normal. And if you're not doing it, you're missing out. So then we also asked them, okay, well, since you've arrived at campus, how many people have you actually, made out with? And the number of people who have made out with more than one person was less than the majority. Most people have either made out with nobody or one person, which tells me that Nick Mose are not as common as we think. But we're being led to believe that they're very common, that if you're not engaged in that practice, there's something wrong with you.
I think, honestly, it's because, like, the people that are into that are just they're louder than everybody else. That's the problem. Like, but then again, I don't know how you're loud about, like, oh, I've never kissed anybody. But that's why we perceive it that way, because that's what gets chatted about.
It's interesting. Well, I don't know where this is going to go, but think about it this way. So think about the vision of the tree of life. So great and spacious building are loud. But remember how Lehi yelled with a loud voice? He yelled with a loud voice to his family. I think there were different types of loud. The great and spacious building, they brag about it. They make it sound like it's great and it's normal. Well, number one, it's not. If you actually, I'm going to take it now to sexuality. When you look at the research on premarital sex, Hollywood makes it sound like it's fantastic. The majority of people who engage in premarital sex report regretting doing it. There's lots of negative feelings, but you don't get that idea from the great and spacious building. So one of the questions with advocacy is, how do we speak with a loud voice on this? Because we don't brag, like you said, that, oh, yeah, I haven't kissed anybody. It's just not what we do. What are some other ways we can be loud? And I'll transition to this in a second. Other ways we can be loud. Allie?
I think one thing is maybe not just be like, oh yeah, no, I haven't kissed anyone, but saying, like voicing your understanding that it's for a certain time at a certain place. So
okay.
That you hold it sacred. And I think not being afraid to voice that is very important.
Certain time, certain place. Think about it this way, too. When your roommate gets home from a date, what questions do you ask? If you're asking, did you kiss her, you're speaking from the great and spacious building. Does that mean that you're evil? No. But what people talk about and inquire about indicates what they care about. And so if that's what you're asking, it's going to be a problem. So you might intentionally not go ahead and ask for those questions. You might very loudly and set certain boundaries and say, I'm just not going to do that. But you can do it in a non-self-righteous way. Just bring yourself for Strength of Youth pamphlet, put it in the center console of your car, and just leave it there. Turn it up to page 38, 36. All right. Okay, I want to get to the consequences real quick, and then I want to talk about, okay, what are we going to do with this? Because I think we have some specific things I would like to address there. Okay, what are the consequences? Real quick, for you, as you think about the consequences, what are the consequences? Just think in your mind, and I'll share some things that I've observed. Like, is it really that big of a deal? Is it that big of a deal if I do this, if I date this, if I don't date here, if I hang out there? Is it really that big of a deal? Is it the end of the world? No, it's not the end of the world. And if it was truly just one person, then it probably wouldn't be a big deal. But when your single action and your behavior contributes to a culture, it begins to entice more loudly the behavior of other people, and it's just not very helpful. Okay, a few things. Number one, I think you're going to find you'll have more single ladies. Oh, and man, all the single ladies song came to my mind. So. Imagine sending your daughter to college. And it'll take you guys some time. You'll raise her up and she'll be great. But imagine sending her to college and you're sending her to BYU or BYU-Idaho because she's going to meet somebody great, a return missionary, right? And imagine she goes year after year, semester after semester, without ever being asked on a date. As a mother or a father, how would you feel about that? It would be devastating. You just want to do something to help her. So you guys, there are girls on campus. There's somebody's daughter. And some of these girls have yet to be taken on a date. And you think about what that does for somebody's sense of self. Should it impact their self-esteem? No, it shouldn't. But does it? Yeah, it does. So we go a long ways into really serving people when we choose to date mindfully. Just because you take somebody on a date doesn't mean you have to marry them. That's part of the point we're making here. You can take them on a date to show them what it looks like to have a righteous priesthood holder, minister to them in a dating fashion for a date or two. And if you're not interested beyond that, there's no commitment beyond that. You're committed for that evening to show her with respect and treat her like a queen. In addition, I think it's going to mean that people who do marry are going to get married older because of some of these practices. And for those who don't, we get this googly-eyed idea, and this is what it looks like to make a decision. This kind of represents that love is blind idea. Once you've done that, you have unrealistic expectations. This is why even if you figured out that she's the one, which there isn't one, but if she's the one, you have to determine to yourself that you are still going to get to know her. Because one day, you're going to marry her. And you're going to want to have realistic expectations. If you have unrealistic expectations, it's going to hurt your marriage. And you will have unrealistic expectations if you don't know her very well. Satan's idea is to undermine your marriage, either through preventing it so it never happens, which he can't do unless you choose to, just act for yourself that way, or planting seeds now that will undermine it later. The decisions you make now can undermine your potential future marriage. Marriage difficulty, just a blah marriage. If you don't think your dating habits affect your marriage, then you've missed the gospel of becoming. Next, it leads people to question if they made a right decision. So I teach here, but I also do therapy over at Centerpoint. And my specialty is to work with couples where one person's decided to divorce or really leaning towards divorce, and one person wants to stay in the marriage. Almost always, they're questioning their decision. They rewrite their past in the context of the present. Oh, I don't have these feelings right now. You know what? I never had those feelings. We went too fast. We should have never got married. And if you've written that narrative, it builds the justification to just say goodbye. And even if you don't divorce, it gives you the justification to stop trying to work on your marriage. And eventually this nasty thing called divorce, which, FYI, So there's that Scroll article on divorce. No, you guys didn't read it because nobody reads the Scroll. Is that right? Okay. Well, let me just summarize my feelings about it for you. I think it was fine. They quoted the Huffington Post as their main source of information, which is not wise. I need to actually talk to them about that because that was stupid. They should have done that. Divorce is not normal. As long as we stand up and speak up, it will never become normal here. However, I believe there's a perception growing that it is becoming normal. As soon as we, just like NICMOS, we perceive it as normal, we're more inclined to do it. If divorce begins to be perceived as normal, we're going to be more inclined to do it. But the overarching marital commitment begins to decline. With the little bit of research I've done with the divorce status here at BYU-Idaho, and again, this is just on limited data, we've gone down in the percentage of the population who's divorced in the last 10 years. Not significantly, but we're not growing. I do not believe there is a growing number of students who are divorcing. I just don't think that's the case. As soon as we believe that that's the case, again, it just opens up doors that are not wise. Okay, so solutions. What do we do? Well, Elder Oaks gave a talk. We've had several general authorities or other church leaders give talks. Why does giving talks not work? Why can't Elder Oaks tell us to stop hanging out and start dating, and we just don't do it? Like, oh, why not?
The wrong people are listening to them.
Okay, so perhaps the wrong people are listening. Okay, good. Why else doesn't it work?
Maybe the only people that are actually like listening and taking like notes or like listening to people and applying it to themselves are the people who are already doing it.
Okay.
And so they're just like, oh, I agree with you because I'm already doing it.
So this is good. So certain people aren't listening. People who need to listen aren't listening. And then the people who do listen, they don't speak with a loud voice to share it. They keep it to themselves. They haven't found a way to share the information. For whatever reason, I'm sure these are some of them, we're not catching any steam, and the culture's getting worse. And my fear is that if we don't do something about it, it's not going to just automatically on itself start to get better. And if it doesn't influence you, because you were lucky to have the stars align and you meet your special someone, it might affect a sibling or a child or somebody down the road. I think we have to do something different, and I believe that we can. We need some sort of grassroots movement. And I think to do this, I'll share some principles. But the idea is this has to be a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach. It won't work top-down. Movements don't start top-down. They start bottom-up. And so therefore, and we can all, because we're all part of the bottom, we can all be a part of it. So, let me just skip through a few of these things. Just some doctrinal realities on how to instigate a grassroots movement. The thing I'm going to highlight here, most of all, we need an enticing and persuasive voice. If you want somebody to act out of norms, so if this is the normal dating behavior, but we want somebody to act like this, but this is normal, we have to be very persuasive to get them to act over here. And that voice has to be consistent. We can't just have like a one-time, oh, you should do this. Oh, yeah, okay. We need a consistent persuasion. Remember when Lehi said a man cannot act for himself, save he should be enticed by one or the other? Cultural norms, the devil and his angels, Hollywood are all providing these constant enticements. We need more consistent enticements on this side. And again, that comes through when the masses begin to do something different. Okay, mention this. Grassroots. Okay, so pragmatically we need. So what do you do when you need to learn how to start a grassroots movement? You Google grassroots movement, and this is what you find. That's what I did. I've never started one, so this is what Google said. You need a specific purpose or a goal that's straightforward. You need motivation and passion. Well, how do we do that consistently? Well, what are you fighting for? Do you really care? I mean, is this something that you actually feel like should be changed, should be addressed, or are you content with things the way that they are? I said, well, if I get married, I'm fine with it. And I'm not fine with it if I don't get married. But what about everybody else? You need a vision of what a difference could look like. Imagine what would happen if we just turned the dating culture upside down, if we reduced the exaggerated meaning of a date, if we started to engage our mind more fully in this process, just imagine what would happen. Number one, I think more dates, more marriages, more ceilings, more strong marriages. We'd completely alter a culture here that's going the other way. What's that? Absolutely, less divorce. Catchy name, idea, strategy, recruitment is interesting. I've discovered there are several students who have these same stirrings that we need to do something. I've had ones within the last year. I've known of students who are starting a dating business, which is interesting. I don't know if it's the model I would use, but they're like, okay, there's problems here. We need to address it. On their own, starting a dating service that's interesting. I had a student come to me. She's a sophomore. She says, I don't think she's here. I forgot her name. She's a solid student. Sophomore. She says, I want to start a nonprofit to start changing, just people dating. And it happened because she was presented a little bit of this information and just ran with the passion. There are people a year or two ago that started doing some iDate. You guys familiar with that? I'm not sure how it is. It's just different things. So we need to unite each other in some way. So it has some unified voice. I'm not sure how to do that exactly. We need an ongoing discussion. Again, we need to have something that consistently persuades. So what we're doing, we, as in me and Madison and some other people, I say Madison because she does all the busy work. I do the fun stuff. So we started this website, BYUI-Do.org. And the purpose of this is to try to address, we can't change the norms unless we know what they're supposed to be. And so the idea here is to have a place where healthy norms are at least promoted and established in a very concrete way, and also to perhaps open up a door for dialogue, for people to ask questions and to engage. That's what we hope to do. So, just two things we're doing. One that we've already done or in the process of doing, and one that we'll be doing here soon. Number one, hashtag just a date. To try to attack this idea that dates are more than a date, we just started just a hashtag. It's just a date. So, I don't have time to go into this. But if you go to BYUI-Do.org, we put on there specific counsel for men and specific counsel for women to try to attack this idea that a date is more than a date. Okay? So I encourage you to go check that out. Next one, okay, is make commitment levels explicit and normal. I don't know if I have enough time to flesh this out, but we've got to try. Okay. So right now, you hang out, and then you go on a date, and usually around the time you're going on a first date, you're thinking whether or not you want to be with them exclusively or even marriage. You might not say it, hopefully, but at least you're thinking it. And so the major commitment levels right now are hanging out, dating exclusively, engaged, and marriage. That's the main path. And so what we do is in the church, we're naturally good at going to the next step. Okay, so if we're dating exclusively, what's the next step? When are we going to get engaged? Okay, we're engaged, we just go, right? We're hanging out, or we're dating, we need to be dating exclusively, and what happens is that process goes way too fast. Or, because people have some trepidation or some fear about it, they fear they can't take that jump, they don't feel like they can make the jump from dating exclusively to engage, and so they just cut it off. When in reality, there's a lot of little micro steps along the way that if we realized and we had shared language, it would enable us to act and take baby commitment steps. Okay? So these are just my proposal. Madison doesn't agree with some of these, and that's okay. Did I convert you with some of them?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. These are my steps. Again, this is not the perfect way, but this is a heck of a lot better than what we're currently doing. Okay? So number one, your first level of commitment is you meet each other. That's normal, right? You have to do that. I recommend doing it not online, but it's possible. Number two, you go on a date, a short date. Not a long date. This actually came from my conversation with Chad last week. That first date, just make it short. That's the next commitment. And then, guess what? You're just friends. That's it. You're friends that you go on dates. At some point, you have a casual DTR. This is to determine that you are not in a relationship. This is not the DTR that throws you into an exclusive relationship. This is to say, hey, you're cool. Because what happens is when people feel that they both kind of like each other, they naturally go into an exclusive relationship. We have to engage the mind and say, you know what, actually, yeah, you're really cool. We should keep dating. We should keep dating. but not exclusively. I don't know you well enough to make that type of commitment. It should be okay to say, I like, what I know about you I like. I just don't know you that well. So therefore, we're going to keep going on dates. Okay? So you have casual DTR. Then you're going on multiple dates. And then gradually the dates get a little bit longer, so you're still going on several dates. We're still not exclusive. Then you have your initial physical contact beyond your casual hug, whatever that is, whatever you call that hug at the end of the date. It's not like this. It's more like whatever you guys do. Okay? I had a roommate that said I had a roommate that told me that you can tell if a girl likes you by how she hugs you. Pat to spat. If she pats your back when she hugs you, she's not that interested. If she rubs or holds you tight, it means she might be interested. Rub to love, pat to spat. Don't know if it's true. Just want to throw it out there. So we have pat hugs right here, maybe a little bit more. So your initial physical contact beyond a hug, it might be a handhold, it might be an arm around, but that's where you're at. Do you notice we haven't inserted kissing yet? Okay? Next. Then, after you've done this for a while, and I don't know that needs to be a terrible amount of time, certainly more than a few weeks, then you have a more serious DTR to determine that, okay, should we become exclusive or not? That's when you have that conversation. Not there. This is when we typically have it, and that's not helpful for anybody. Right there. Okay? Then, assuming that the conversation goes well, because you determine either to keep dating as you are, or you just move forward, then let's say you're exclusive. After you're in that you're dating exclusively, then you have your first, as President Kimball would say, sexless kiss. What's a sexless kiss? Well, President Kimball said sexless kiss, singular. There's that principle in the First Strength of Youth that says never do anything to arouse sexual feelings. Okay, those are prophets who wrote that stuff and endorsed it. They do that because it'll be good for us if we trust them. It's always good for us if we trust the prophet. So your first sexless kiss, not kisses. And then there's some acknowledgement of the relationship publicly, social media, family, friends, whatever the case is, meaning you tell them that you're an official item. And then insert intentional dating, real intentional dating. Because this is when people typically stop dating intentionally. So right here, we date with a specific plan to deepen learning and refine expectations for our boyfriend or our girlfriend. We begin to have deeper value conversations. We've had some value conversations up here. We begin to have deeper value conversations. Next, we escalate physical touch, handhold, cuddle, another sexless kiss, I guess, or more sexless kiss. Okay. Then you meet significant others. Meeting significant others too soon, sometimes it just happens like that because you both live around here, but sometimes that can just muddy things. It just can make it awkward and make you feel like you need to move forward faster than you should. Then you drop the L-bomb. And it's usually the guy who will do this. The guys say it first, generally. They say, I love you. Then you talk about another DTR. That's when you have your conversation about, okay, are we going to move towards a marriage? That's a marriage DTR. Then you get engaged, complete wedding plans, date, temple reservation, etc. Having futuristic conversations at a deeper level, and you begin to commit to shared future values. That's when you begin to commit. This is how we're going to raise kids. Here's how we're going to handle debt. Here's how we're going to handle finances. You begin to make those conversations when you're engaged. And you marry, which is a really good idea. Then you engage in lots of passionate kissing. And then you consummate your marriage. And then an ever-increasing depth of sacrifice, love, and commitment in marriage. Okay? Lastly, this is it. That's what we're doing. That list right there we're going to put on our website soon. We're trying to share it with people, just give people language to talk with. A shared language can help. But just do something. Remember what El Beno says? One influences one, etc. So that's it. Live long and prosper.